some collaboration and forward-facing information here, but just knowing that this is complicated even for us. And so if it's complicated for us, I'm sure it's very complicated for folks on the outside. And for example, even Maine Care, our insurance provider for Star State Medicaid program, is different than our Office of Family Independence, which provides the eligibility side where people submit their applications for Maine Care. So it is not straightforward. Next slide, please. So I'm going to turn this over to Michelle Lane. And like I said, we're going to have a number of speakers. Each person will provide an overview of their program. And then at the end, we welcome your questions. But please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat and ask some questions along the way. And if we don't get to them, we will follow up to answer those questions. So Michelle Lane, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, and thank you, Courtney. I'm Michelle Lane, and I oversee the Complex Case Unit. We're located within Maine Care. We work with adult Maine residents who have disabilities. We work to hopefully provide simple and timely solutions to complex healthcare, financial, and placement issues through integrated provider and community involvement. Team members, we ask someone from each team working with the member to please come to the meetings on a regular basis with the information requested. We do have action steps on a weekly basis per our team meetings. So, excuse me. If you're not able to attend, that you ask one of your counterparts who can provide the requested information. And if no one is able to attend at all from your unit or from any part of the members team, that they get a hold of whoever our team lead is. We have meetings weekly and they're adjusted as appropriate. We can have them more frequent if, for instance, we're getting close to placement. We can have them more often. In between meetings, we do have the email chain. We ask people to use the reply all option so that way everybody can continue to remain in the loop as to what's going on between meetings and to keep the case moving forward in a timely fashion. The meetings are forward focusing, targeting next steps for a timely resolution. Next page, Zach, excuse me. So the process that we work is that the individual is in a less than ideal setting or situation, and the care team, whoever that is, has been unable to resolve their stated issue for 5 or more days. They can be in, as it shows here, emergency department, crisis bed, group home, shared living home, psych hospital, or they could be anywhere. We work with, again, Maine residents, regardless of their insurance. So even though we're located at Maine Care, we can work with people without Maine Care insurance. We do ask, you'll see this on another page, we do need permission from the member and or guardian, especially if they do not have Maine Care. The CCU will outreach the member and or provider to assess the member's needs and wants, which goes back to needing permission, because if a member's not willing to give permission for us to work with them, we can do all kinds of planning only to have them refuse. And they do have a right to refuse. And we can't force someone to, for instance, go to a certain placement or to accept a certain service. So we do work as part of a team, a care team. We have our team lead on our end. We could have any number of individuals on another team. So we ask the hospital staff, again, if someone's in a hospital, if they have a case manager, if they have anyone in the community that could be working with them. As we get a placement on board, if it is placement that someone's needing, we will pull them into the meeting as well.
Just letting you know, you have a minute and a half, Michelle.
Okay, thank you, Zach. Next slide. Our requirements are that we do need to have due diligence done prior to us getting a referral. This could entail someone requiring like brain injury services, long-term support services, other related conditions, DS, OBH, APS or LitCop. Please ensure a Maximus has been done to assess their level of care so we know what direction someone is needing. Make any and all referrals to assisted living and nursing facilities via tracking form. We do have one that we can provide if you don't have one. apply for their services as they need as well. And we ask that they assist in assessing client services within the hospital or affiliates if appropriate. Some hospitals have nursing homes that they're affiliated with. So we ask that they ensure that they're looking at those as options as well. Before we can become involved,
I didn't mean to do that, but you're at 30 seconds, Michelle.
Yep, okay. Before we can become involved, we need to ensure that they've done everything that they can to try to resolve the issue to no avail. For as mentioned here in the referral, please make sure that you're filling out the referral to the best of your ability with as much detail as possible. Next page. There's 2 referrals on our site. One is for the adults and one is for children. Children is not affiliated with CCU. It goes over to Cassie Antonelli over at CBHS. Next page.
Yeah, and that's time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Next will be Office of Aging and Disability Services, and then you want to go to the next tab so we see who's next, Zach? Okay, I think this is Nicole.
It is. Hi, my name is Nicole Rooney. I am the Long-Term Services and Supports Program Manager here at the Office of Aging and Disability Services. The Office of Aging and Disability Services supports a wide variety of adults age 18 and older. That could be individuals who are aging with chronic conditions who require assistance with nursing and personal care services. It could be individuals with brain injury, other related conditions, intellectual disabilities, or people needing support from our adult protective services unit. Next slide. Again, we serve older adults, 18 and older. They could be in need of nursing facility services, residential, or community-based services. We have a wide variety of services that can support individuals of their service type of choice in the place of choice, whether that be community or more facility-based. Next slide. Services could include care coordination, case management, in-home nursing services, personal care, skilled nursing therapies, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, adult day services, respite care, home modifications, assistive technology, homemaker services, home delivered meals, and again, nursing facility and residential or assisted living type services. Next slide. This next slide is really just to kind of give you an idea of the continuum of care that we support here at the Office of Aging and Disability Services. I also want to mention that we support individuals through either Medicaid covered services, or we are very fortunate enough to also provide services for people who don't qualify for financial main care but may be eligible for some of our state funded program. Usually the difference is their monthly income or their asset limits. Those programs are limited to availability of funds, and wait lists do exist, but I thought I should mention that. But here in this slide, it kind of shows the continuum of care in the lower left-hand quadrant. You're going to see things like housing assistance, adult day, family caregiver support, home delivered services, and homemaker. Those imply a higher level of independence of the individual and a lower cost. As we move towards the right upper quadrant of the continuum, it ends with nursing facility and intermediate care facilities for individuals with intellectual disabilities that require nursing home. So higher cost, less independence, more support given. And then in between there is a variety of services such as in-home nursing services such as private duty nursing, consumer-directed services, home health, hospice, our 1915C waiver programs, such as our Section 19 or our intellectual disabilities, brain injury, ORC, and then our assisted housing that could include assisted living, residential care reimbursed by main care services, or independent services, independent housing with services program, which is a state-funded program. Next slide. One of the things that I would like to mention for LTSS eligibility is it is different than our intellectual disabilities program, where that is based on a diagnosis during the developmental period. Eligibility for LTSS is dependent on 2 things, and both must be true. So they must receive a medical eligibility determination and meet medical eligibility requirements and they must also meet financial eligibility. So it's not a one or other. Both of them have to exist to determine which program they would be eligible for. And for the majority of long-term services and supports, as Michelle mentioned earlier, it does require a medical eligibility determination assessment that is done through our assessing services agency. Currently, our vendor is Maximus. So that med assessment is required prior to the prior authorization of any services for LTSS. Next assessment. Next slide, excuse me.
You have a minute.
Great. Core areas of the med tool that we're referring, we're looking at activities of daily living, instrumental, we're looking at other skilled nursing needs. We are looking at cognition and behaviors. However, usually cognition and behaviors are only triggering an outcome if it is impacting the ability to perform those activities of daily living or instrumental activities of daily living, or if it puts the member at great health and safety risk in the community, so that they require that more structured environment to be considered eligible. And next slide. That medical eligibility services, they do a determination on that med form. Usually members are indicated to require nursing facility, residential, or community-based service. We do like to honor the member or their guardian or legal representative's right to choose where they receive those services. And we also look at the least restrictive services that is best for supporting that member safely. If a member is receiving services in the community prior going to the hospital, if they've been on program within the last 60 days, they can actually access their previous care plan and return to the community. If that previous assessment has expired and they've been out of those services for greater than 60 days, I just want to mention the new Maximus is required in order for them to be able to go back home to receive those services. Next slide. And I believe I jumped ahead and already gave that information. So I'm at time.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much. I
Hi,
turn it over
everyone.
to Catherine.
Oh, sorry, Catherine.
Hi.
Let me go back.
Back one. Hi, Catherine Temple. Hi, thanks. So when you're looking for placement for long-term care facilities, your first step is going to be to check the MEDEX assessment, as Nicole said. That's through Maximus as our ASA at this point. You also, so you're going to check and see what level of care is identified first. Then the next thing is you want to look if they're going to need a nursing facility. Look to see if the PASS-R1 screen is done to ensure that was completed, and or if there's a PASS-R2, if that's applicable. This is a federal and state requirement, so if they're any NIF, they are required to have the level 1 screen completed prior to the admission. If the person is suspected to have a mental health diagnosis or a DD diagnosis, the PASS-R2 assessment must be completed. And that's done through the ASA Maximus, which is triggered through the level 1 outcome. Then exploring all LTSS options that's identified in the MEDEX or PASSAR and PASSAR. This, we have a link here, which is going to be provided to you. So that includes some various resources. Again, as mentioned, be happy to meet with you separately to go over some of those. For example, the 6 affordable ALFs is an option that I'm not sure that everyone knows about referring to. So there's some options here that we'd love to have you make sure that you're aware of. And happy to give you some more detail. And then refer to the res care or NIFs as mentioned. So you're going to follow up to see if there's any openings and then submit the application for the long-term care main care. If the individual, after doing all the referrals, if the individual is denied due to no bed, you can request that the person be added to the wait list, because a lot of times that's what's happening is there's no bed, they can be added to that wait list. And then the next piece is referring to the ombudsman. A lot of times the ombudsman LIDCOP has a relationship with a lot of the facilities. They know often if there's an opening and they can help with some person-centered problem solving. They're just a great resource. So, and that client or the guardian needs to call directly to make the referral, but often might need some help to do that. And when all in-state options have been exhausted, the entire state has been explored, you can explore out of state might be considered. We did supply a checklist here to use as a guide for out of state placement consideration. Just a reminder that preliminary approval would be needed through ODES prior to looking at a possible PA from Maine Care. So again, there's a checklist here that you can use for that. If you could go to the next slide, please. And here's some training links, resources, which we thought would be helpful for you, especially if you have any new staff coming on. We just really kind of added all the trainings that you might need or links to important forums. And I just wanted to mention that we do have an upcoming training for PASSAR, and we added two that are specific just for hospitals, so you won't have to sit through a training that's that's just for nursing facilities, which is extra. So this will be two separate days and times. So they're February 17th at 9 o'clock and February 19th at 1 o'clock. And I'll send the invitation to everyone out on this group so you can pick one and send that link out. And next slide, please. So this is a slide on the long-term care ombudsman, lit cops. So here's a phone number to make the referral. And as I mentioned, you just would have the individual or the guardian make the direct referral. They need to give permission for that to occur. And that's when you want to, somebody qualifies for a PNMIC res care or
You have 30 seconds, Catherine. Sorry.
yeah, okay,
I don't
thanks.
mind interrupting.
Or a nursing facility. So they need some assistance after the referral's made. They can help you with that. So thank you. Next slide. And I think we're on to Liz.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Harding. I'm the waiver manager for the brain injury waiver and other related conditions waiver at the Office of Aging and Disability Services. So for brain injury services in Maine, we do have three programs. We have acquired brain injury nursing facility, we do have rehabilitative services, and we have home and community-based services, which includes Section 18, our brain injury waiver. They're listed as Maine's definition of an acquired brain injury for you to read over and look at. Next slide. So our acquired brain injury nursing facility program, it's really skilled inpatient high-level nursing care that focuses on rehabilitative treatment for people who have a brain injury. The service is usually for people who have a newly sustained injury. They're at the hospital and they need further rehabilitation. We do have two facilities in the state. Brewer Center for Health and Rehabilitation has 22 beds. It's a distinct unit in the facility. And River Ridge Neurorehabilitation Center in Kennebunk has 14 beds. And again, it's a distinct unit in the facility to provide these intensive services. Next slide. For this Section 18 brain injury waiver, these are our eligibility requirements. So somebody does have to be 18 or older. They have the diagnosis, which I shared Maine's definition of acquired brain injury. They need to have an assessment by a neuropsychologist or a physiatrist. And the assessment needs to provide the following. So you can see that there, that person's not in a vegetative state. They can demonstrate potential for physical, behavioral, cognitive rehabilitation. And that as part of the application process, once we have a complete application, we do have Maximus, which is our assessing services agency, complete medical eligibility for the waiver. So they would complete a health and safety assessment and a MAPI, a Mayo Portland adaptability inventory tool that will identify the functional needs in places where somebody needs help and assistance. And we need to ensure a person's health and welfare, that they can be supported in the community for the waiver. Next slide. So these are just a few of the services that the brain injury waiver offers. We have assistive technology services. Members can have an assistive technology assessment that will give recommendations for equipment, devices that really help maintain functional capabilities, increased independence, increased safety. We do offer care coordination services, which is similar to case management services that assist with gaining access to waiver services and other state plan services. Next slide, please. We offer work and employment services as well, home support services, which could be a 24/7 residential group home for people with brain injuries. Also could be somebody living in their own apartment or with family or friends that just need intermittent home support, which that could be depending on the person's needs and what they're in need of. You know, for example, 20 hours a week that home support staff can go in and help the member in their own home. We also offer that service, that quarter-hour home support with self-directed, where people get to hire and fire their own staff, which could be, you know, family, friends, neighbors. Next slide. So part of the brain injury waiver, we have an application, it's online, we have some links here. So we need a complete application, we need a release of information for our assessing services agency, a choice letter, and we do need that assessment that was really spelled out of what we need in that assessment in the previous slide. And then you can fax, you can email, you can mail applications to us. I will say we do have partnership with Brain Injury Association Maine chapter. We can offer a free service and somebody doesn't need main care for it. It is called neuro resource facilitation. So that might be calling the number listed for the Brain Injury Association Maine chapter, interested in neuro resource facilitation, which can help talk about the different services that Maine has for brain injury and help connecting people with those services as well. Next
30
slide.
seconds.
Okay. Just for brain injury? Zach,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay,
Just for
thank
your
you.
part.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
just for brain injury. Yep. Yep.
Okay, got you. So we do have a wait list, so just something to keep in mind. So once we have a completed application, we make a referral to Maximus to determine medical eligibility for our waiver. A person would go on our wait list. So if somebody's on our wait list, though, we do have community neuro rehabilitation. It's called Section 102 that people can access with private insurance and also Maine Care, which is PTOT in a clinic setting. Some people might be familiar with Bayside, which is now neurorestorative in Scarborough, Maine. Also, there's another neurorestorative in Standish, Maine, just for an example. Priority 1 status is given to people that are in institutions, facilities of 8 beds or more. Priority 2 is given to applicants living in their own homes and in the community. Next slide. All right, so now I'm going to talk about other related conditions. Okay, so this is our definition of other related conditions. So this could be cerebral palsy or epilepsy or any other condition other than mental illness found to be closely related to intellectual disabilities. Okay, and you can read the rest of it there. Okay, and this is some conditions that are considered other related conditions. Just a few here, examples. Okay, thank you. So for other related conditions, waiver eligibility, somebody has to be at least 21 years old. They have to have an other related condition, and it has to have manifested before the person reaches the age 22. It has to be likely to continue indefinitely, and it results in substantial functioning limitations in 3 or more of the following areas of major life activities, including self-care, understanding and use of language, learning, mobility, self-direction, capacity for independent living. Next slide. So other related conditions waiver has similar services to our brain injury waiver, assistive technology services, care coordination services, home support, whether that is 24/7 in a group home or that is quarter-hour home support with people living in their own apartment or with family, friends, or by themselves. And then we also do offer work support services, employment services. Next slide. So we do have our application online as well, or if you call us, we'll mail you an application. Need a letter of medical necessity from a provider for part of that application process, choice letter. You can email, fax. We have some contact information of who to contact there and reference to our website there. Next slide. And again, our other related conditions waiver, we do have a wait list. Once we receive a complete application, we're going to make a referral to Maximus to determine medical eligibility for the waiver. If somebody's found medically eligibility, they're going to go on our wait list and they'll be given a priority level. So priority 1 for other related conditions is given to people residing in facilities of 16 beds or more, and priority 2 is given to applicants living in their own homes or community. All right, and thank you so much, and I think we're moving on to the next person.
Great. Good morning. My name is Shelley King, and I'm a project director here at ODES. I'm going to be speaking about adult developmental disability services. Now, if the hospital already knows that the member is eligible for DS service, they can call the DS crisis hotline directly. And my colleague Lori will be speaking about DS crisis services later. What I'm going to be speaking about for a couple of slides is how to help somebody apply for DS services if they have not already done so, and what the eligibility criteria is. So adults with intellectual disability or autism can apply for developmental disability services. And if they're found eligible, they'll have access to adult case management and ODES crisis services. ODES also has 2 adults waiver programs with additional services, and the person's case manager can help them apply for those as well. Next slide, Zach. The criteria for determining developmental disability services for adults, there's 2 diagnoses that would allow them to be eligible. Intellectual disability is one, and autism spectrum disorder is the other. In terms of intellectual disability, they would need to score at least 2 standard deviations below the mean on an adaptive behavior scale. They would need to have a diagnosis of intellectual disability, and the functional deficits need to be manifested before age 22. In regards to being found eligible for autism spectrum disorder, obviously a diagnosis, again, a score of 2 standard deviations below the mean on an adaptive behavioral scale, and again, the functional deficits being manifested before age 22. Next slide. We've recently redone our website in order to make applying for DS services easier. And so the link to that is down at the bottom of this page where it says intake and eligibility. And we have many different ways to apply. One is via the email listed there, dsintake.odes@maine.gov. The other way is to click on the link to the website, and people can do it via phone with an intake coordinator, or like Liz mentioned earlier, we can mail applications. You can show up at an office. But essentially, the application packet includes an application form, and a psychological evaluation is needed in order to confirm diagnosis, adaptive behavior scale test, and if the diagnosis is intellectual disability, then we're going to need the general intelligence test. Other information that folks might find helpful is an IEP or other relevant assessments. Next slide. Once the packet is received, intake coordinator will schedule an assessment. Now, by rule, the intake coordinator has 10 days to set an appointment, but please, if the person is in the hospital or ER, please let the intake coordinator know that, so they'll not wait that long. Next slide. Additionally, ODES has 2 waiver services for people with intellectual disability and autism. Those are also known as Section 21 and Section 29. Section 21 is a comprehensive waiver that includes residential supports, and Section 29 is a support waiver. Services, you can see some of the examples listed there, including home support, community support, work support, career planning, etc. And I will also note, you may hear conversation about a newly proposed lifespan waiver. That's not active yet, but I wanted to flag it for folks because it is being proposed so that transitions for youth into adulthood will go smoother. Starting at age 14 is what it's proposed to roll out to. So that's all I have for today, and I'll send it over to my colleague Lori.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm Lori Mitchell. I'm the Crisis Program Administrator for ODES, and I oversee the crisis program statewide. Forgive me, this is not my normal voice. I'm happy that I can actually participate today. But ODES DS Crisis Services, as Shelley had mentioned, it is a service that folks who are found eligible through the intake process at ODES, and it applies to adults over the age of 18 who have been approved. And as she mentioned before, it's for folks with intellectual disability and or autism. Next slide, please. And the ODES Crisis Support Services process, if a client shows up at an emergency room and it's been identified they don't have a case manager, then crisis case management can kick in when a community case manager is not available. You can contact the crisis program by phoning the main crisis line at the number listed above and asking to speak to a DS crisis worker. They will come and do a crisis assessment level of care for long-term placement by doing this assessment. They will convene an IST, which is an individual support team, through coordination of the client's team, hospital guardian, and others identified as part of the care team, and seek out ODES state-run crisis beds or emergency transitional housing. I have 8 ODES crisis beds across the state of Maine, and currently have a contract for 4 providers to provide emergency transitional housing as well for folks who qualify for DS services. If the individual remains in the ED, then a case manager, whoever it be, whether it's crisis or not, weekly vendor calls will go out to seek alternative providers in the state. And when none have been identified, then a referral to CCU would happen through the process that Michelle Lane explained. Next slide, please. Some of the expectations upon contacting DS Crisis is if the crisis worker does not respond within 15 minutes, please call back. And if there's still no response during normal business hours, you can contact the crisis team leader for the area of the state that's you're located in. And the next, don't jump ahead, Zach, but on the next slide, you'll see this contact information provided. If you continue to get no response, you can contact the program administrator, which is myself, also listed in the next slide. And if you are requesting a crisis worker and it's after hours, you can contact the main crisis line and request to speak to the team leader on standby. I have a team leader on standby 24/7 in situations of this nature. Next slide, please. And this final slide is basically, it's broken down in districts 1 and 2 is Jessica Demers. She's the crisis team leader. That's her contact information. Lola Poria is the crisis team leader for Aroostook County. Pam Tower covers the Augusta area. Jennifer Morris covers up in the Penobscot area. And of course, that's my contact information there below. And you can always reach out to me if you have not gotten a response from either a crisis worker or a team leader on standby or during the day. Next slide. And I believe we hand this off to the Office of Behavioral Health here. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Lori. My name is Bree Maselli. I'm the Associate Director of Adult Mental Health here at Office of Behavioral Health. And under my purview is our Community Residential Services, also known as PNMIE. Next slide, Nick. There we go. So again, these are community residents. They are small in nature. We try to keep them under, under 10 beds or so. We have a few that are a little larger, but these really are community group milieu settings where folks are able to have 24/7 supports and with daily functioning mental health concerns. Next slide. So they're home-like. We have roughly 23 providers with a total of 847 beds across the state. They're group milieu in structure. They do vary depending on agency and program on what they are able to offer. Some programs are able, because they have in-house PSS, others do not. Some have in-house occupational therapy, while others do not. And so it does vary by program in regards to the staffing makeup in which how their service is designed with the main care program. And the allowable staffing patterns that they have. We have the group home settings that really focus on dual diagnosis, young adults, sex offenders. We do have a few programs right now. They tend to be more and more limiting just due to workforce challenges that are allowing for the one-to-one. And we do have some for step-down levels of care, such as a supportive apartment that does have 24/7 access to staff, but folks have a little bit more independence within their own unit. Programs focus on rehabilitative care, skill development, stepping down to least restrictive. The hope is that most individuals will be able to gain skill and return to a lower level of care. Next slide. So the primary diagnosis is serious and persistent mental illness. So though we are able to support folks that are duly diagnosed, the primary does need to be mental illness. They must have a locus score of a 23 or higher. They must have demonstrated medical necessity. They must have full main care, not partial. And all programs are voluntary, even if the individual is under guardianship. So it is really important that we have buy-in from the individual that they are willing to go. These are treatment programs, not housing programs. So it's they must be willing to identify mental health treatment goals. And if they're able to identify that and consent for the service, then the safe and supportive housing comes with that. We do have some exclusionary diagnoses here in regards to individuals that would be ineligible for the service. And so that's listed. All of our services do need a prior authorization prior to placement. Next slide. So in order to make a referral, all referrals are submitted through the Essentra portal and must include required eligibility material. There's links here in order to make sure you have the appropriate forms. Once the referral is submitted to the Essentra system, we do have a clinical review that is done. There's kind of 3 phases in that application. First is the client meets eligibility and all documentation is on file. They're normally approved and approved fairly quickly within that system. The application in the system may go on hold and the individual referring would get a notification that there's not enough clinical information within the packet to make a determination, or maybe there's a missing form. And so the third case would be that the client was denied due to exclusionary diagnosis or it's not eligible for that level of care. There are opportunities in which a doc-to-doc review could be done in regards to those denials. And again, we do try to support those with a prompt response. Sometimes it is a little bit of additional information related to what the exclusionary, what's driving the need for the program, and with a little more clinical support that those decisions can and may not be determined overridden, but it's worth a conversation if needed. If we are looking for an individual that is a complex presentation, all out-of-state placements are considered when OBH and all in-state options have received referrals and have been exhausted. We do manage these beds a little different than some of the other sections of residential care. We do have a whole team. Many of you may know Carrie as our point person that manages that team. But once they go through the Essentra system and a clinical authorization, the OBH team then reviews the application and they secure the match for the bed. And so we try to stay on top of that. Next slide.
You have about 30, 40 seconds.
Okay, so this is a little bit about that process. So once the application is approved within the Essentra system, my team will then secure a bed based on presentation, based on needs of client, and based on bed availability statewide. Once my team sends the referral directly to the mental health provider, that mental health provider has 3 days to acknowledge that they have received that referral. The provider then has 5 days to contact the program that made the referral, and in hopes to also meet with the individual, and 30 days to officially move the individual into the placement. It's important within these initial intake meetings. They can be done in person, via Zoom. Hospital staff can support the client. Case managers, if they have one, could support the client. to participate, it is important that the program reviews some of the expectations within the program. Individuals do have to pay rent even though they are in a residential treatment program. So there is a client contribution to care that supports things that are not covered by the main care portion of the service. And so programs go over that. Programs talk about treatment goals. They talk about house rules, expectations, in order to allow the individual and those supporting the individual with making a decision to go to the facility, making sure that that is just an informed kind of decision. Clients must participate in those meetings. They must be able to speak up and articulate goals and what they're hoping to accomplish within the program, and really be able in those meetings to give consent for the service prior to an agency officially moving them in. Next slide. So these are, again, just some of the forms, the expectations for submitting a referral, and contact information with provider relations if you're having challenges with Essentia. Our team obviously is available for support and getting access if you're having issues with Essentia in regards to questions about, is this an appropriate referral? Sometimes based on older age or medical needs, there are some barriers with placement. Again, that would be dependent on certain medical grade equipment that the individual might need, or level of hands-on support. It's not all offer some of the PSS support, but if you have questions, you can definitely reach out. Next slide. And here are the contact informations you can reach out to us if you do have additional questions.
Bree, before I get to the wrap-up slides,
Yes.
so I've been going back for a moment. There's a number of questions in the chat, Bree. I just wanted to raise. So one of them is, there any specific criteria that excludes someone from a PNMI? Can you just raise a little bit about that medical complexity component and share some other exclusions?
So we no longer fall under assisted housing, which allowed for some additional supports within regulations. So we do have some medical grade equipment that would be unallowable because the staff within these facilities are not trained appropriately. So again, depending, certain breathing apparatuses are not allowable within our program, while others may be. So again, it's very client specific based on the clinical needs. The exclusionary diagnoses are listed here. And so again, it's really looking at the significance of the diagnosis, what is causing the needs, adjustment disorders, antisocial personality, brain injury, obviously other programs within the department that might be more appropriate for individuals, dementia, and other programs that would not really support an individual with rehabilitative care.
Another question is, are there specific behaviors that would exclude someone from a PNMI, like aggression, suicide attempts, physical aggression?
Yeah, so again, that's a case-by-case basis. I would say we do have to consider safety risks for individuals going into a group milieu setting, and what that would mean for staff and or other residents. That is not to say that it's not worth a conversation and a discussion in regards to how we might best be able to support an individual. But it's not a complete black or white. I think sometimes we may see individuals that come and into a lot of different types of PNMIs and step away from PNMI for a while, then might want to come back to a PNMI for a while. And so again, also kind of really, what is the goal of the PNMI? What is the individual hoping to accomplish while in the PNMI, just so that we can make an appropriate match or see if this is the best service for them, or if there's a least restrictive setting that we would be able to wrap support services around them in their own placement.
And Bree, I found for myself when I was doing site visits at PNMI, PNMIs, I learned a lot in understanding the staff, the level of staff, the training of staff. Do you mind just speaking to that? I think it's helpful for people to understand like if someone's really medically complex, that the staff that are there are really not appropriate.
Yeah, so our programs definitely vary across in regards to who has stronger support staff for certain things. And so we do have some programs that do have full-time nurses and those full-time nurses are at the programs able to do observations and support the team with an individual, where we have other programs that have nurse consults that are really there for consultation and QAing supports and training of the staff. We have some programs that do have occupational therapy that can really do occupational therapy assistance and really support with that level of care, and we have other programs that do not. We also, the majority and the main credential is a high school diploma with a MHRT certification, that is a state operated certification to train up the workers that are there 24/7. They also have clinicians available. Many of the clinicians are not doing, let's say, direct one-to-one therapy per se, but more group milieu, supporting with the clinical needs of the program and the individual, but they might also have an outpatient service doing more of their trauma clinical work. And again, those clinicians can sometimes be shared across a variety of programs or concentrated to one program, depending on that agency's structure and how they've established their programming. So it does vary.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yep, nope. And so it does vary. And again, that's why it's really important for the referral information to really identify the needs so that our treatment, our team can really match the treatment needs with the most appropriate staffing structure and services needed if we have them.
All right, a few other questions, then we're going to move on. So Jenny asked, how many open PNMI beds are there typically on average at any given time?
Oh, that varies. I think that we have them open, but having them open doesn't mean that the client wants them. Like I mentioned, there is a client contribution to care that varies depending on the physical location. So currently right now we have more beds available. However, when clients really understand what their contribution to care may be, that might be a deterrent for maybe not wanting to accept that bed. And again, that is an informed decision on the client's part.
And then two more. And then one, can OBH decline a referral that they're approved if they were approved by Essentra?
We can ask for reconsideration within that approval. So that does happen within Essentra. Essentra may approve someone, let's say, they have an ODS diagnosis and mental health. There may be a reconsideration of a re-review of that application just to make sure that we are making sure that the individual is receiving the right level of care. That sometimes does also happen for us for individuals that are identified as mental health, but also brain injury. And again, it's just making sure that we're really looking both in the short term for a placement, but what might be a most appropriate long-term support services. And so there may be some that do have a reconsideration. It doesn't mean that behavioral health supports can't be offered to that individual from a community perspective if another residential placement option might be a better long-term fit.
And then I'm just going to highlight this Jenny's comment here that PNMI referral process is very extensive and doing it from an acute hospital is very challenging. So a way to be clear and easier to support the navigation of a PNMI transition from acute care settings. And I think I'll just put a pin in that and say, I think this warrants another conversation in a separate meeting, because obviously there's a lot of questions, and I think folks highlighted some of the challenges and of the exclusion criteria and dual diagnosis. And so I think this warrants another deeper dive with the PNMI team to kind of go deeper in this discussion. So I know each of the teams offered to have a follow-up discussion. So I know Bree has already said that she and Carrie are happy to do that. So Jenny, happy to schedule another time to do a deeper dive on that topic. All right, Zach, yeah, of course. Zach, there were some other closeout slides I just wanted to go over. Just wrap up.
Right here. Is this where we're?
I'm not seeing the slides right now.
Oh. What? Okay.
It disappeared. We're on 50.
Thank you.
Right there.
All right,
Sounds
so
good.
just wanted a few key takeaways, and then happy to answer some questions. And if there's anything we don't get to, we're happy to either send out an FAQ or schedule follow-up meetings. But one of the things we just wanted to highlight is that out-of-state placement continues to be the last resort, and still may not be a possibility. And this is for many reasons. We want to try to keep people and support them in their communities. accessing supportive services with main care when someone's out of state is really difficult because that facility might be enrolled in main care, but other providers, specialty providers, dentists, DME are not. And that makes it really difficult. And it's very difficult for us to work with individual organizations to enroll in main care. And so we have examples of people that we've placed in Florida that we have to medevac back to Maine for emergent dental care. And so it just becomes very challenging to meet everyone's all of their needs when someone is out of state. So we really try hard. And we know that our state of only 1.4 million people does not have every specialty service and cannot meet every single person's needs. So we certainly want to work with folks around an out of state placement, but just that we are going to try to turn over every stone to try to see if we can find a placement in someone's community where they have natural supports. For each of the programs, due diligence is required, and really thinking for especially for CCU and ODES, for SNF, we really expect due diligence ahead of time before referring directly for an out-of-state placement. Reach out to ODES and OBH when appropriate if the member has a multitude of diagnoses, because just sometimes with that PSS support, or if folks have both intellectual disabilities and severe persistent mental illness, it's sometimes can be difficult to ascertain which PNMI is the most appropriate. And so please reach out so we can discuss those further, just to clarify things up front. And we know that people don't often neatly fit into one program, and those can be some of the most complicated cases in our state. So we're always happy to try to have conversations, case discussions about those individuals. If meeting an NF or residential level of care paramedics, please explore all appropriate options, provide the member and legal rep the contact information as LipCop as a resource for all facilities to explore placement. Have members on wait lists, track outreach and reasons for denials. That way you have a demonstration of your due diligence, and then follow up regularly with facilities as placement for possible placements. And please ensure referrals to CCU is detailed and complete as to the ask of CCU and what has been done to resolve the issue to no avail. And so we want to be good partners in this. We know that the cases that come to us are often are the most complicated. And so I just recognize that this is not easy work. And I know that this can be really frustrating, especially the demands on the hospital where you all, especially at Maine Med, are serving the entire state of Maine, and the need for acute beds is really acute, and the pressure to move people is intense. And I know that our department really cares deeply about each of these individuals and wants to try to support them longitudinally in finding the most appropriate place. And that can take time sometimes. And so I know that there's just naturally some tension in some of these goals. And I know ultimately all of us want what's best for these individuals. So really appreciate people taking the time today. Our hope is to, again, really, if nothing else, you'll know who to reach out to learn more about these programs. We're going to send you these slides in this recording. We're going to put this on our website as well. So this can be a resource for people moving forward. Each of the teams within ODES, OBH, and OMS are happy to have a follow-up meeting to go deeper into explaining any of these particular programs. We know we covered a lot in 1 hour, but we really want to be good partners. And we know that this is a lot of really complicated policy information on the federal and state level. And so we are really happy to try to work with you to explain the program requirements. But thank you all for your time and attention today, and we'll look forward to future discussions to try to make improvements. Thanks so much, everyone. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you.